Welcome to the Digital Remodeler Podcast. So glad to have you with me today. And joining me is Cody Ryan. And Cody is not only a part of the remodeling industry, but as we're going to get into, he's now moved into the world of AI and automation. And so, Cody, great to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great talking with you.
Fantastic. And so, a little background. So, Cody, you've been with construction industries. That's one of your companies. And then you've also moved into the world of automation. And we'll get into that as we go through our interview. But let's kind of get into the background a little bit. Your background is in the trades. And so, how did you get started with construction industries?
Uh, yeah, a little background. My dad had a construction business when I was growing up. He started when I was about 8, and he was a home builder, did remodels and all the above. And so I just started at a very early age, and as I got to about 20 years old, I was moving to a different town, so I just stuck with construction. This is what I knew how to do, and things just kind of evolved from there. And I had a construction business in a different town, moved towns. You know, you learn as you go. So I started learning about branding and marketing and the whole works. And being a younger guy in the industry growing up, I was always catching on to the newest stuff and the latest stuff. And it evolved to, a few years ago, I've had, like I was building bathroom trailers, I was building homes, I was doing remodels, and I kind of had all this stuff going on. And along the lines, I'm always kind of canceled other contractors. They're like, hey, how did you set this up? And I'm like, here, well, let me show you. When I was set up their stuff on the computer, setting up websites, I started building websites. And so I was like, well, why don't I just put that all under one umbrella where I can help counsel and help, get some advice and then build and do everything. And so that's what led into construction industries. I figured would capture it all in the branding form. And
Perfect.
yeah, that's how that came about.
Awesome. So then, kind of take us behind the scenes here. So you're running your business by day, and then you started teaching yourself coding at night. So, you were doing all the stuff you just told us about, and then you kind of took another turn here into coding. What really motivated that shift and got you learning that piece of it?
Uh, well, there's always all these website builders, and there's a lot of CRMs. There's a lot of different stuff out there. But and I'm sure you other remodelers have been into this where they do things a little bit differently, and they're like, well, I wish this was set up this way, or I wish the website would look like this, where you can't really just do that on a regular website builder. And at the same time, I was going through, I kind of wanted to shift a little bit. I don't mind, I'm always down to put my tool bags on and get to work, right? But at the same time, it's not what I want to be doing forever. My dad, he's 64 years old, I think, and still climbing on roofs, still building, and that's great for him. But I was kind of trying to think long term. I wanted to transition out of that, but still use my knowledge of what I know in construction. So that's where I got this bright idea. Well, I have my nights free, so I just started taking some courses on coding, and I was able to, change a few of the programs a little bit, doing some back end stuff to kind of make it fit my business. And then it was a little easier to build websites for some other contractors, and just one thing just kept leading to another. So it's my goal is to get into something that I can do when I'm still old and um, not be breaking my back. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what were some of the real world problems that you faced in your own business and that you saw your dad face that got you thinking about there's got to be a way to automate this and there's got to be just a more efficient way to do some of this stuff. I know you mentioned CRMs. What are maybe some of the other things you observed?
I think one of the probably the biggest one was when these projects get big and you start doing bids on big projects, there's programs out there that are like generic programs for doing bids and that, but it's always a time consuming process. And that was a big kind of a hang up of mine because you got 2 or 3 crews going, you got subcontractors all over, and and then you're going out and doing job walks, and you got to come home at night, do a bid, and send it to the customer, and all the communication. And so there's just always a lot. And multiple companies have been successful at this, right? But trying to be lean and take advantage of the new stuff that's coming out nowadays. That was probably the biggest thing. Is I was like, I would use, I've used a couple of different CRMs and Salesforce and a couple of different things, and I'm trying to figure out how to get the bidding to work right with this. And that was kind of the shift. Well, if I can code some of my own stuff, and I want to be able to go out on a job site, bid it this way, and see if I can close the customer on the bid that same day, right then and there. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing that like made me kind of shift my mind to, well, what if I can learn coding and build something that way myself? I wasn't technically automation quite yet then, but it was that was that path in the road that veered just a little bit.
Good.
Yeah.
And was there what we would call maybe a breakthrough moment where you realized this might become more than just a little bit of a side project, that you might actually be able to use this to help other contractors and build something a little more sizable?
Yeah, the so I went through like 6 months of staying up till midnight, 1 o'clock, learning coding. Um, and didn't know exactly, because when you say coding, that's a huge thing, right? There's so many different coding languages, and you can go so deep even just in regular HTML, right? So I just took on as much as I could and learned all this stuff. And then ChatGPT came out after I had spent months and hours learning all this stuff. And I'm sitting here messing with ChatGPT, and because everybody says it's the newest thing, and I had this idea. I was like, I wonder if ChatGPT can write out this HTML thing that I've been working on for like a week, and it did it in about 28 seconds, and it did it better than I could. And I was like, holy cow! I mean, I was sitting here at the computer like this for about a half hour, just like trying to process what happened, and so that was probably the mind-blowing moment where I was just like, okay, there's a lot more to be done here, because if I can do that in 28 seconds and start adding some of this in, start adding some of that in, next thing I know, I have a program that I just wrote from scratch. And I can build it exactly the way I wanted. And I had a few other subcontractors of mine that were growing their business, and they told me their pain points, and I was like, okay, well, I can build this for them. And yeah, that just kind of started the whole momentum of that whole thing.
Perfect. Yeah, and when we say that, was that where EIDRIX Automation was born?
That's exactly where, yep.
Oh,
Yeah, that's where I just started thinking, okay, I can be a very complicated, all over the place type of person. What I know throughout the years of learning is like you need to focus and stay simple if you can. You can be complicated, but you got to simplify it.
yeah.
And so that's where the whole concept of EIDRIX came. Is I'm currently working on building kind of a more of a plug and play CRM sales tool, different stuff, to where a contractor can start small, only have the certain tools that he wants or needs at that time, and then at a later time be able to add more tools to the arsenal to work on building the back end. So the back end is growing just like the crew's growing and the training's growing and everything like that. So yeah, that was the start of EIDRIX. And how it is, you get fixated on an idea, and for like the next 2 weeks after that ChatGPT came out, here I was writing this business plan and shifting everything and trying to clarify and simplify it. And yeah, it's been amazing. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's good. Well, so you started building these tools out. You had a few, subcontractors. You figured out their pain points. Can you share a success story? Somebody you've helped maybe save some time or grow with one of the solutions that you were able to build, uh, out of this, you know, epiphany.
Yeah, yeah. Probably so far the best one right now. When you are building a business, being able to kind of forecast where you want to go in, like, let's say a year. A challenge that I had is I didn't truly understand the cost it took to grow a business to this next year with four guys in a truck and the tools and everything. And of course, you can try to be an Excel sheet master and somewhat get that figured out, but there's just kind of a lot of nuances to when you actually do start growing. You got to pay for your guys and the taxes and the insurance and everything like that. I noticed a couple of subcontractors that I built their websites for. They would call me and ask me like, "Hey, if I wanted to add an executive assistant or this and that, what do I need to do with my pricing?" And I would always try to go to my Excel sheet and just kind of hope it was right. Um, and again, I know there are people out there that they're forecasters, they've been successful at it, but me here at home, I went through with using a combination of ChatGPT, Claude, and different things, and I came up with a tool that a contractor can go in, input where he wants to be in a year, how many guys he wants to have, if he wants to have office admin, which you're not necessarily charging per hour for them, their overhead costs and all that kind of stuff. And I was able to get a really clear tool. It's a free tool that I just anybody can go use, and you can kind of forecast, maybe get a game plan on where you want your business to be in a year, what's going to cost you, how much do you kind of need to be charging per hour, and things like that. Um, and I gave it to the one guy who's a fencing contractor, and he was just like, "Wow, well, this makes it super easy, and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing in a year." And he shared it with other contractors in his area, and um, so that was kind of the first big breakthrough tool that I gave somebody. And right now, I'm working with a local company that they use more of a sales front, big canvassing team, and multiple salesmen, and they're a GC, but that's how they get a lot of their jobs. And I do some work with them, and right now they're kind of going out and using like a natural forms type sheet and stuff. And I said, well, what if I built you an actual bid tool, knowing what I struggled with bids in the past? I was like, okay, I'm going to combine and make this whole tool. So I'm right in the middle of that right now, spending my nights and weekends building that for them. Um, and I've got quite a few more things lined up. So just kind of the ball's just kind of starting to roll right now for that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, a lot of contractors, when they hear AI, they get a little nervous. They grew up in the 80s and 90s and they saw Terminator movies, or, they're just a little nervous about this stuff. So, how do you explain that in a way that makes sense to the average remodeler? How do you kind of give them a little comfort in this?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's a pretty common question. As I talk about it a lot with contractors. Um, when you do say AI, that's exactly what they refer to. They're just thinking of something that takes over and runs the whole business, or robots out there building houses. And while, I don't want to say that's not going to happen, you never know what's going to happen, right? But the way AI is structured right now and the way the world is moving, the best way I'm able to explain it to other contractors, that AI is an extension of you. And it's a tool that you use to do more things than you thought you could do. And so it's hard to talk somebody out of it when they've got the Terminator thing running in their mind, right? But I always say it's like having a partner there with a 130 IQ, you know. Um, I'm not a very bright person. There's other people out there, they would say they're not a very bright person, but if you ask me how to figure out something that would be, super complicated for most people, I have a tool for that, you know? And so that's kind of the way I see AI. And um, I, I really think it's going to be a necessity. So that's why I tell people, like, I know it might be a little daunting, but just get on ChatGPT. Um, you can ask. I have all kinds of different prompts that you can do just to help you visualize for your business or know your numbers, different things like that. Start utilizing it, because that's all AI is going to be, is an extension of yourself. Um, I mean, like I said, you never say never. It's not like we're just gonna have robots out there just building the houses. That could happen, but that's not the plan right now.
Yeah.
Right now is to make yourself become that much better, that much bigger of a person to be able to do more things.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and I really love the way you put that. For somebody just starting to explore, automation or AI, what would you say is that first step? I kind of like one of the things you said, just get out on ChatGPT and start playing with it. I think that's how I got started. Somebody told me, "Hey, you go try this thing," and I was making pictures of hamburgers and stupid stuff first, and then
Right.
actually started to explore. Wow, this thing is cool, and now I can't imagine a day not using it. Uh,
Yeah,
you
I'm the
know,
same. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
things we use it for are just mind blowing. But what would be your suggestion? Somebody is just getting started. What would you tell them? Well, hey, here's first step for you.
Yeah, I think the probably the first step, so you can kind of see how it really works. You can mess with the pictures. Like that's always fun. And it's kind of a way you can figure out, okay, well, write a prompt, say, hey, create a dog jumping, and then hey, create that dog jumping in the water. So you can kind of get that. When it comes to business, one thing that I told somebody before and it worked for him was, so do a prompt like telling ChatGPT that they are a business analyst or a business expert, and tell them that you are trying to organize your finances in the business or figure out how much you're spending on your guys in the business. Then take a screenshot of, you don't have to put all your personal information in there or anything, but take a screenshot of like the spending for the last month or something on your guys or just in your business account and all that. Um, and when I told a few people to do this and they did that, they were like, "Oh wow, well, it makes it crystal clear," because you always have in your mind, "I probably spent maybe $500 on this guy," and you can either sit down and go through a whole Excel spreadsheet, or you could simply take a snapshot of your spending and put that in the chat GPT and tell it exactly what you want. And it'll tell you exactly, oh no, you actually spent $800, $830 on this guy or something. That would be my first kind of play around, so you can see what the boundaries are in the AI space. And I mean, I can talk about it all day long, but that would be a good place to kind of start. Use it for your business. If you have random questions, um, I know when it comes to code, depending if you know exactly what code, and I've used it my so my dad relies on me when it comes to code. He'll call me and be like, "Hey, what's code for doing this egress window or something?" And I used to spend a lot of time sitting here trying to go through the code book to find out what year code we're using and all that kind of stuff. You can actually tell ChatGPT, hey, we're using the IRC 2012, and I want to know any code that's related to egress window. And bam, there you go. You have it all kind of pasted out exactly where it's at in the book. So you can even go double check it if you're not quite trusting it. Um, there's all kinds of cool little ways. So it's allowed me as a creative person, I can be as creative as I can imagine with it. So just jump in and start giving it a shot and have fun with it. That's the one thing is do some business stuff and then go off on the side and ask it some challenging questions, or be funny with it or something. And I think most people would be amazed once they really start diving into that.
I think it's great advice. So, you're one of the few leaders, certainly that I've met, who has been able to bridge the experience field between being out in the field, actually doing the hands on work, and the technology. Uh, so, where do you see AI taking the construction and remodeling industry in the next 5 to 10 years based on having that perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a very broad question. Um, and there's lots of different ways you can think about it. I do think that there's going to be, even like right now, they have a little robot that you can stack shingles on and it'll lay the shingles on your roof, right? There's that aspect of AI that I think is still going to be an extension of the contractor. So I think a contractor is going to be able to do a lot more, a lot faster with the use of like the AI side of the machinery side of AI. On the back end and on the business side of AI, in 5 to 10 years, I think if you're not using AI in your business, I think all back end tools will essentially be AI. It'll just be that much more efficient. All your CRMs, it's not going to be so much in here typing up your bids and doing all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be a lot more say, hey, I need a bid. I need to build a 24 by 24 shop with this metal, blah, 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 and it's going to spit out a bid. Um, in the next 5 to 10 years is kind of where I see that going, depending on, if quantum computing is figured out within that period, then I think it goes even beyond that, which is hard to kind of fathom because just 10 years ago we couldn't fathom telling ChatGPT anything. Like you just can't quite comprehend that. So I think we're going to go through another stage. One thing I do think for sure though is like AOL compared to internet now. You're just going to be another company kind of left in the dust if you're not somewhat familiar with AI. So that way you can take advantage of the other tools that crazy people come up with.
Yeah,
So that's kind of where I see it.
good. Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think it's, as you've said, it's an extension of who you are, but those who are not eh, getting involved, embracing the technology, are going to be the ones that are having to try and catch up in the days ahead. And that's going to be difficult because it's moving so quickly and
Yeah.
so rapidly.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree. Let me ask you, what do you think on the autonomous type building stuff? Do you think that is something that we should be thinking about? You think that's something that's going to affect the industry?
I think there are going to be people who test it, but I don't know that that's going to catch on greatly. I think there will be segments of the market where people are really embracing that because you can scale. And here's kind of my thought process. So I've traveled lots of places in the world where you have cookie cutter housing, cookie cutter apartments, where stack them deep, sell them cheap, one right after the other. Uh, so to me, that makes sense. Just like the 3D printed houses. How can you do it quick? How can you do it cheap? How can you do it efficient? And how can you do it to scale? So
Right.
I think there's a demand for that in, especially let's take like a third world country where you have large population growth. You need to deploy housing quickly. You need to
Uh-huh.
do it at scale, and you're going to replicate the same housing structure over and over and over again. To me, that makes sense. But then I
Right.
take the US where we're all individualistic. I don't want my house to look like the guys next door.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that that catches on so much. I still think we like that personalized touch. And so there may be AI assisted um, building that comes into that. That's more of what I see to where we get more efficient. But I don't know that we'll totally turn it over to that because I think we're still individualistic enough. We like that craftsmanship.
Uh-huh.
I still like the idea that there's a carpenter that comes in and fine details my woodwork. And
Right.
you think about it this way: a person will still pay, a $500,000 for a Bentley that's hand built, uh, just because for the satisfaction of knowing that the car was put together by hand. Not that it's any better necessarily, uh, but it's the luxury, it's the distinction, so I think an AI driven world that will almost become the luxury side of things is I have the thing that wasn't AI built. Uh,
Right.
so I think there's a counter philosophy to that. Of course, I'm a marketer at heart, so I'm always thinking, well, if everybody's going this direction, then where's the opportunity?
Right. Yeah.
But I do see, especially in my world travels, the need for reliable housing, quick housing that you can duplicate and scale quickly. I
Uh-huh.
definitely see that.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I get asked that quite a bit. So that's why I was like, well, let me see what you think about it. So yeah, because that's a great point. It's interesting. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be. So, what are you most excited about right now with EIDRIX Automation? Like any new features or projects we should be watching our social media feed for?
Yeah, well, I think this bidding tool, it's a bidding slash sales tool, that's coming out. I should be done with it hopefully by the end of the month. It's like it's up almost halfway there. Um, I think it'll help combine sales and bidding. As I know, I talk to a lot of contractors right now, and the market, and you would know this, the marketing world is constantly changing, right? And I noticed that I'm always having to relearn some stuff, doing, my marketing and helping other guys out. These companies keep getting bigger and bigger. They got more resources. And so sometimes the middle or the little guys just kind of they have to fight for the food a little more. Um, so that's where I think having more of a sales bidding type tool, that would help them land more of their jobs. Um, I think that will really come in handy, and I'm pretty excited about that. Um, but then I've got plans just kind of one right after another. With the EIDRIX automation, if I build a website, I set it up ready for automation. Whereas, somebody fills out your form, or if you don't have a chat bot on your website, you need to get to a point to have a chat bot on your website. That's kind of where everything's going. Little things like that I get really excited about because I get to help somebody, and I like being able to help somebody. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited with all the list of tools and the different things I'm going to be coming out. If you look up OPEX 3, it's what it's called, because it was the third try of that tool that I spent hours trying to work on. That's a free tool that people can look into to maybe forecast their business or see what things could cost. And then yeah, as these other tools come out, I get excited. I get people's input, do a little tweaking, and try to take my combination of all the years of doing all sorts of different construction businesses. And I'm just hoping to really create some good tools that are usable and make sense and affordable. So,
Perfect. And for our listeners, if they want to learn more about you and about EIDRIX, where can they go to do that?
so right now, probably the best way, I'm still working on setting up like the social media and stuff for EIDRIX, but you can go to edrix.ai. And that'll kind of show you what the EIDRIX tools do, and how all this complicated stuff makes sense. If you want to reach out to me personally, um, probably the best way is going onto Instagram and looking up Cody Inked. Um, I know my name's Cody Ryan, but it's just something that somebody gave to me and it stuck because I'm all tattooed up. So Look up Cody Inc. And if there's anybody that just, needs a little bit of advice or wants a tool built or something like that, then that's probably the best way to reach out to me. And I'm always available. So,
Perfect. And then any final words for contractors out there who just feel stuck or overwhelmed trying to run their business in this, digital automated world today?
yeah. One thing I would say is one thing that helped me, I had a plumber who, long story short, I ended up sitting next to him on a plane. And come to find out, this was a guy that runs $120 million a year plumbing business. And he's been drugged through the road, all that kind of stuff. And the best advice he gave me, because I was going to a point where I was, overwhelmed. There's so many options. There's so many things to do. There's so many this and that, is to just plan it one day at a time. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but if you want to learn how to do this in your business, or you want to hire this position for your business, just tackle it one day at a time. You always have your big vision, your goals, but if you can just take a breath, just tackle it one day at a time. The work is still going to be there tomorrow, right? The problems are still going to be there tomorrow, unfortunately. So it's like stressing over it that you're going to miss out or lose out on something. When, if you're ambitious enough to start a construction company, the chances of that happen are probably pretty slim, right? You're still going to be ambitious and going. So with that, if most contractors are high, strung and overwhelmed, just take it one day at a time, take a breath, and just do it little by little. And then once you start doing that, you look back in 6 months and be like, oh crap, hey, I've done all this. Look at what's going on now. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, Cody, this has been a great conversation, and love what you're doing with AI. Love the journey you're on, and of course, I've in our business as well. We have made hard pivots into the AI world, so this is a fun conversation for us. And appreciate you joining me today on the Digital Remodeler Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you invited me on. I've been watching some of your podcasts and stuff since you reached out to me, and yeah, lots of potential. I like all the positivity and what you're doing for contractors. And so yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on here.
All right, and to our audience, thanks for joining us, and hope you'll tune in again for the next episode.
Okay.